Alright, it is 7:57 a.m., December 22nd, 2020. It's a Tuesday. Not that that really matters anymore. Good morning. Good morning. I'm awake. I think it snowed. It snowed last night anyway. Couldn't honestly tell you if it stuck. I peeked out my window, but I honestly don't recall what I saw. Ah. What the hell did I dream about? I dreamt that I still lived in that house on Teton. I've been dreaming about food a lot lately. But I don't know if food was involved with this one. I know I had my dog in it. Been dreaming about Mello pretty consistently over the last couple of weeks. Of course, when I lived in Teton, it had still been years since I had last seen my dog. I think there was snow. Yeah. Oh yeah. I fell asleep listening to a T90 video on YouTube, and it just looped, or so it kept. YouTube kept listening to more T90 videos. T90 is a he covers a lot of Age of Empires 2 stuff. He's a caster for that. Pretty enjoyable streamer. but in my dream, yeah, that's right. I think I interpreted all that noise as my mom coding like a knockoff to Age of Empires 2 or a mod for it, or maybe working on the game itself. Yeah. I was mostly just listening in the dream, like walking around and wandering around and just kind of listening and taking stuff in. Not really actively doing a lot. I remember dreaming, though I can't remember if it was tonight or last night, which is to say today or yesterday. If I had a dream that I was trying to walk in through the back door of my house on Carlisle. It's a backyard, fenced in. The yard's maybe 20, 30 feet from the back door to the fence. It curves around the house in an L shape, and at the far end of the L from the gate, you enter at the top of the long end of the L, I'd say. The short end of the L, there's an in-ground pool. Of course, that pool got broken because I think we left water in it one winter, which cracked its foundation. Though I had still gone swimming in the middle of winter. Once or twice. But in the dream, the snow was covering the backyard. It was night. I was walking in through the back door for some reason. And there were wolves. Oh, this is in Indiana. In well, a city as far as Indiana has cities. And there was a mother wolf growling at me from like 25 feet away. You know, I froze, kind of took in what was around me, and there were like 3 derpy wolf cubs just kind of falling over themselves. I don't really remember anything that happened after that. You know, strangely, my dreams lately haven't really been laced with the kind of romantic imagery or themes that I'm so accustomed to. They haven't felt particularly nostalgic or romantic. Not a lot of fantasy. Really, it's just been kind of quiet ambiance. Like walking through abandoned buildings or sitting in an open field while it snows. Kind of the abyssal beauty. I guess I guess that's probably the right word for it. Yeah, a beauty that's empty and resonates in that emptiness. God, I feel like I have a lot on my mind, but I don't. Not really. For the better part, let's look. How long has it been since I've done one of these? I'm guessing like a week, maybe a little over a week, probably about a week. Right? Let's see. Content. Yeah, I haven't pushed anything in 4 days. The last Let's Talk was, yep, a week ago. Okay. Yeah. You know, I have been mostly depressed with a couple days of, not mania necessarily, but, you know, not depression spiced in between. I haven't gotten very much productive done in this last week at all. I had a few interviews in the last couple of weeks, and I either got rejected or haven't heard back from them. It's not, you know, entirely surprising, but it did hurt. Not in a, like... When I talk about hurt here, I don't mean, like... These individual instances have made me sad, but that they point more to an overarching trend, a theme, right, of professional rejection over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Now, I'm not the type of person to get bent out of shape when I try to do something once and it doesn't go well or it doesn't happen. You know, c'est la vie, it is what it is, life goes on. And often these are opportunities and instances we can learn from and grow from. But when it's hundreds of rejections, that starts being crippling. Crippling in the sense that I'm having a hard time imagining applying to something and it working out. I'm genuinely having a hard time imagining something working out right now. professionally. And that's really bad, because if you're lacking in the imagination for how something might be possible, you're closing a lot of doors. A lot of doors. There are a lot of possibilities you won't entertain, chances you won't take, and rather than jumping at every opportunity, I'm increasingly telling myself, well, that's not going to happen, that's not going to happen, that's not going to happen. I'm not doing yes, I'm doing no. I'm doing no a lot more than I'm doing yes. And every rejection serves to reinforce that attitude and that notion that no is the inevitable and nearly universal answer. So I'm really wrestling with, how do you continue putting yourself out there and beating my fucking head against the wall and not letting it eat at me, not letting it get to me, not internalizing the rejection that I'm receiving and have been receiving. And I honestly don't know. I really don't know. Like, I really don't want to be a prima donna here. I really don't. But there have definitely been days where, in the last week, where I'm just like despondent. Just like hopeless. Not like mowing around like woe is me, but just like not believing that any of this shit will work. Because it hasn't been working. And I really don't want to beat too hard on the drum of, oh, woe is me, because, again, I appreciate there are people whose circumstances are a lot worse than mine. I mean, I could live in a state where my eviction moratorium isn't until March, right? I could, unprompted, I've received, well, not unprompted, unasked, I've received hundreds of dollars in the last week from folks. And that was only after a couple were like, hey, I want to send you money. Even at the beginning of the month, a couple of folks reached out, and I talked about how much that really, really, really made my day. And I've had people reaching out saying, hey, if there's anything I can do, let me know. I'm not to the point where I'm comfortable asking for money. I'm not. And it's on one hand a pride thing. Like, I don't want to need help. I want to be able to help other people. And I feel guilty being in a position where I need help. I feel guilty being in a position where the smart thing would be to ask. So I've been putting it off, and maybe I'll do it at the end of this week if I still need to. Maybe. Oh, my dumbass marked the wrong days on my calendar. When I woke up today, I scratched out the 27th and 28th on my calendar when it's the 22nd. Whoops. Yeah, I've been feeling very floaty and ambiguous. Ambiguous in the sense that I don't really know, God, how I fit into so many other people's lives. I really don't. Like, very superficially, very vaguely, I guess I do. But for a person who puts on as much of a front of being self-assured, confident, passionate, independent, I really need not need, want. I really want so much feedback and so much affirmation. I think I need it to be happy. Maybe not to function, but to function well and to be happy and to be fulfilled. I need affirmation and feedback. I need a lot of it. A lot of it. Being raised. Oh god, in so many ways, whether it be Christian taught me subtly, the subtext of Christianity taught me that it was vanity to want compliments, to want affirmation, that I should be modest. Being raised as male, as masculine, taught me that it's weakness to ask for affirmation, that it's vulnerability to need or want other people. And those are very hard things to be indoctrinated to and have to deconstruct and work away from. Despite my biological inclination, I don't really largely identify with masculinity very much at all anymore. It's a facade and a persona that I'll put on. It's a tool that I'll use, but it's a tool that I really begrudge. I want I don't want androgyny as being a characterizing trait for me. I want modularity to be a characterizing trait as far as gender goes, if that makes sense. Modularity in the sense of being able to perform as many identities and personas, as many faces as possible. To act, to transition from one to the next, as easily as changing a mask or a costume. I want that sort of adventurous fluidity, that freedom to, in the moment, in the day, define and redefine and characterize and recharacterize myself, to not be trapped and hemmed in, to not be easily defined, but maybe easily known. I've always had such a I really just want to be a fucking cyborg at the end of the day. I think. That's the closest thing, right? I just want to be able to be like, today I don't want to wear glasses. Today I want short hair. Today I want long hair. Today I'm okay with having some facial hair. Tomorrow I don't want it. Today I like my jawline. Tomorrow it bothers me. Today I like my voice. Tomorrow I want a different one. Today having this kind of genitals sounds nice or fun or affirming or true, and the other day maybe the opposite. But I mean, the biological condition is that that's not reality. That's just fantasy. That's a nice fantasy, and one that's maybe vaguely possible given a century of work, maybe. I honestly don't believe that's a reality I'll live to see, at least not on my income. When we human beings characterize and describe ourselves, We tend to do so through a few distinct avenues. One distinct avenue by which we describe and characterize ourselves is through action or past action. You can see very literal examples of this in names today, whether it be Western or indigenous. Last names like Smith, Hunter, things like that. Or names like Dances with Wolves or something like that. Now, they can be metaphorical, obviously. They can be poetic, but they can also be very concrete. Smith often came from, in the medieval and Western tradition, of somebody being a smith or being a smith's son. And Smith's son ties us into the second way that we identify, or can identify, and that's through association with other people. Like Ragnarsson, Ragnarsdottir, Albertson, Svensson. No, a lot of these I'm using are quite Scandinavian, but even in regal titles, Alexander II, Nicholas V, Robert III, etc., etc. That second, third, fifth, 13th harkens to your relationship with other people to establish something true about you or to give yourself context. Not through your actions, but through your relationships. There's, God, I'm certain there are other categories. Like, there's probably defining ourselves through myth or legend or divinity, right? Names that derive from divination, astronomy. No, astrology. Astrology, not astronomy, astrology. Divine portents, religion, the stars. Cracks on turtle bones heated to the point of breaking. The calf bones of oxen, scrawled with words and symbols, then snapped in half to see where the cracking takes it, or tea leaves. I mean, a lot of these examples are drawing from China in particular, but that's where my mind went to. There's such a fascinating and long tradition of divination. And sometimes we define ourselves through these myths, these stories that we tell ourselves. Alexander the Great, for example, was son of Zeus. That certain people were touched by God, whether it be Martin Luther or so many others. Or when we talk about the Khans, whether they had the favor or the authority of the blue sky, of Tengri. My reason for segueing into this topic is that I'm having a lot of difficulty defining myself. Because it hasn't just been since the end of March, my being largely quarantined, that I'm feeling deprived or lacking in a lot of context. You know, context in actions. I can be defined in actions in terms of words that I'm speaking, people that I'm speaking to, ways that I'm consuming or surviving, ways that I'm producing media or consuming media, my long distance relationships with people. Right, but saying that I'm Diana's son or Michael's daughter. They don't really have much meaning. Because I'm so far removed from communities who have even the slightest fucking clue who my parents are, what they do, and what their place in the world is. Or might be. Like, their character has such little to no bearing on people's characterizing of me, which I think on the whole is probably a good thing, but we do characterize one another by our associations. You know, you are the company that you keep. And in keeping no close company, in keeping only distant company, I have really done an odd job for myself. Not by choice. Working graveyard for a better part of a year. By that I mean for just over a year. I really don't have relationships here in Seattle that I would define myself by. You want to be your mysterious magical rent-a-hermit? I could live with that. Yeah, for some reason I didn't have the Twitch window open. Oops. But it's... I'm not having an identity crisis. I want to be clear about that. I'm very sure of who I am. What I care about, what moves me, what inspires me, what makes me passionate and live or want to live. I know what drives me, moves me, and motivates me. But at the same time, I am feeling a bit tabula rasa, blank slatey. I'm feeling very ambiguous and unknown and undefined in the context of the community around me and the world around me. That Amy was joking with a little bit with the rent-a-hermit thing. I do feel very much hermetical around, but just kind of around. Not mysterious, just unknown. I think mysterious puts a bit too much of a romantic tone on it, but, you know, who knows? Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird morning. It's not a bad morning. I'm trying to motivate myself to talk to people. I think I'm gonna finish drinking this cider. I'm going to take a shower and then Amy, I know you're not insinuating that you want me to live like a barn animal. is a really funny image, though. Mm. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing today. I guess I'm trying to put that together. I need to stop ghosting people. God, I'm in a weird place right now. I'm being ghosted by one or two people. And it's totally understandable that I am. These are trying times for all of us, and having the emotional energy to deal with more complicated or sensitive or whatever topics, we're not all there right now. Fuck, I haven't been there. But it's really funny that I've been like waiting on responses from a couple of people and being patient and being like, hey, get around to it when you get around to it, and at the same time being in that position with a few other people. So I think I need to bite the bullet and reach out to folks today. If I were a person who is super into or in any way into pet play, I would definitely make a colorful joke here. And I wish that I were, for the benefit of the keeping a pet Alex thing. I wish that I were. I want to make a vague, somewhat flirtatious response, but that ain't me. God, it's so hard, honestly, to think about the future in any capacity. Yeah, I implied a colorful joke, even if I'm not there. The thinking about the future in any meaningful capacity is just like wild to me right now. I'm living day by day. Which, isn't the worst thing, but also is not the best thing in the world. I'm really not feeling that bad this morning, which is kind of why I wanted to do one of these first thing in the morning, because I haven't run out of energy for the day yet. It helped. I had a long conversation with a good friend of mine last night. We played Warzone for a while, played horribly, then complained about Cyberpunk 2077 for a while. Just talked about games, art, current events, life, stuff like that. It was nice. Made me lament how difficult it is to have these conversations. Like, Amy, I want, and I mention this like every fucking time we talk. I want to. No, today would be a great day for it. It's snowing here in Seattle. It probably will only be here for like a day or two. I want to grab the shitty bottle of wine that I have, go to the beach with you, and like smoke and drink on the beach and talk and catch up. That sounds amazing. That sounds so fucking nice. Yeah. I hope you do move up here. It's kind of cool how many people who are very important to me are talking about moving here. Yeah. I'm oddly not sad about it being Christmas soon and being alone on Christmas. I was last year because I was alone and working on Christmas, alone and working graveyard on Christmas. Yeah, LA is definitely a fiery hellscape. Cannot disagree with that. I was talking to someone I went on a date with a couple of weeks ago about LA. And they're like, it's not that bad. I'm like, I fucking hate it. I hate damn near everything about LA. Yeah. Chinese food, there's a Chinese place a couple blocks away that I could hit up on Christmas. I probably won't, though. I mean, honestly, I'm probably doing nothing for Christmas. Mm. In LA is definitely, it's not like a one-to-one miniature of the United States, but it's pretty close. It's like a one-to-one miniature of liberal American society, right? Like you're saying, it's crazy socially stratified. It's not stratified unless you're talking about the stratosphere, not yeah. Yeah, I mean, if the homeless encampments are definitely a thing here. They're like every other block or every 3 blocks or so. But I live in the city center, to be fair. I live in very central Seattle, so people are just living as close to services as they can, or having been rejected or pushed out from these services, or afraid of staying at these services because our unhoused neighbors can be put at risk in some of these facilities. They're just near services or near dense populations that might give them money or food or shelter of any kind. So there's quite a lot in the city center here, and it's infuriating. It's infuriating because this last week, a encampment in Cal Anderson Park was driven out by the Seattle Police and Seattle Parks Department, and so much of their personal property was destroyed. And the police and Seattle Parks Department insisted that there's shelter enough for everyone who's unhoused in Seattle. There isn't. There isn't under normal circumstances, and right now, the capacity of our shelters has been cut due to COVID restrictions. So we have thousands, if not tens of thousands, of people out on our streets who have nowhere to go and no one who's willing to help them. And the only government agencies that are engaging with them are police who brutalize them and force them to relocate on a whim without any resources or direction. And if any hesitance or refusal is demonstrated, it results in personal violence and the destruction of personal property. It's fucking horrible up here. Yeah, in LA it extends into the suburbs. Yeah, I know that's true. Yeah, LA I think probably has it worse than we do here in Seattle because we have very mild winters in comparison to much of the United States, but you have like insanely mild winters. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh God, what position is Gascon in? Is he Attorney General for California? It's 80 degrees. That's fucking insane. I'm flabbergasted by it being above zero this time of year. Up here in Seattle, it's 38 today, which means the snow is going, if not gone. But still, for me, 38 in December is warm. He's your district attorney, that's right. I knew it was... I couldn't remember the title. But yeah, that seems cool. We have a bunch of fucking shitheels up here. Shitheel libs in Washington, especially in Seattle. Yeah, fuck your NIMBY neighbors. We've seen some marginal cuts to our police department. We've seen some marginal reforms to how the police are organized and sheriff is appointed to give the local city council more authority. But really, it's wildly inadequate. God. Yeah, the talk about things going, quote, back to normal with the vaccine rolling out is just insane to me because it isn't. 35% of Americans, 35% of all Americans are at risk of eviction at the end of this month. 35%. In what world? In what world are things getting better? This is fucking horrible. Like, this is worse than the Great Depression. And I'm laughing because, yeah, we live in nightmare dystopia, and I'm fucking losing it. It's just, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. But don't worry, we gave you $1,200, what, 8 months ago? 6 months ago? We're giving you maybe 600 more? Listen, the 1,200 didn't cover my rent. This 600 won't even, it'll barely cover half of my rent. You fucking kidding me? But it is, $600 is enough for a wide array of firearms. So, you know, if you want this dispossessed 35% of America that you're forcing out of their homes, you're giving them enough money to arm and defend themselves. What the fuck are you doing? It's so bad. Yeah, they're definitely spitting on us. It's fucking horrible. It's absolutely horrible. The crazy fucking thing is we're seeing riots. We're seeing alt-right riots right now. And we're seeing increased radicalization and militancy of the entirety of the United States population across political lines. What's happening is people are being pushed more and more to the extremes of the political spectrum. Unfortunately, that means a massive resurgence of fascists, of alt-rightists, of militant libertarians. And militant libertarians, I don't hate you, but you're so close to being militant anarchists that, like, you just have, like, one little step to go, buddy, and you'll be, like, golden in my book. You just gotta care about other people, and you'll be there. Yeah, guillotines on Amazon for $599. Brian, roommate, good friend of mine, in the past, former roommate, still a good friend of mine, shared a meme that showed how you could build a guillotine for $600 with me. The fucked up thing is when the 1200s were going around, there were memes going around for how you could build a guillotine for $1,200. I've also seen people, no joke, sharing how to buy machetes in bulk for $600. You can buy so many implements of violence for $600, but you cannot survive on it. And that's very American. That's very characteristic of the United States. Well, I know you remember, Brian, but because this is recorded and speaking to a broader audience, I do characterize who I'm talking to. Yeah, Amy, Brian, and I went to the same college. Yeah. Well, the machetes and bulk thing might be in bad taste, I guess, but, like, is it? Like, populace arming themselves in the interest of revolution or resistance in the face of a government that is making it blatantly clear that they don't care. I find it really hard to characterize any of that poorly. Like, God, if you took me 2 years ago, I would be, or even a year ago, if leftists were so openly, if people were so openly talking about arming themselves, I would be like, hey, you know, there are middle paths, there are compromises, there are ways to accomplish this less violently. Yeah, I know. I get the Rwanda sensitivity there as well. But, you know, the tool is not to blame for the genocide, right? If anything, the tool speaks to the efficacy of the implement in the hands of people who don't have access to firearms. Like, it's, yeah. The same way in, like, the Kalashnikov, the AK-47 in its inherent line has been involved in so many massacres, but is still a very revolutionary tool. Yeah, guillotines... guillotines are, they inspire us to think of the French Revolution. By the way, if people aren't aware, The level of financial disparity in the United States today is significantly more pronounced and worse than the financial disparity in the days leading up to the French Revolution, and has been worse for a couple of years now. So if we're speaking from an economic sociological lens, we're well overdue for a violent revolution. But the metric that a lot of people used to use to calculate when a revolution was impending, and it's a metric that the CIA World Factbook and a lot of institutional organizations still use today, is calculating the accessibility of food on an average wage. Yeah, socioeconomic is what I was trying to say, but backwards, because I'm still waking up. But here in the United States, food is so cheap that that's not an adequate way to analyze the potential for violence, the potential for radicalism, the potential for revolution in whatever color or persuasion it may come. We don't have accurate models that we use or teach in the United States to track the instability of our own country. We only use models that track the instability of less developed nations because it helps perpetuate the myth that we are stable, that we are the pinnacle of Western and, in fact, modern civilization. But the fact of the matter is, 35% of Americans are risking eviction at the end of the month. That more than that are unable to properly feed themselves or their children. That we are seeing all-time high unemployment, all-time low spending, that even with our entirely disingenuous and misleading unemployment statistics, by which, and I've talked about this previously, but shortly, if you are employed in any way or receiving any sort of income and are not actively every week applying to unemployment for the duration of a month, you do not count as being unemployed for that month. You must apply every week out of that month. You must have no other form of income for you to count in the United States Census statistics as being unemployed. So if you look at the unemployment numbers, you might as well multiply it by 2 or 3 to get the actual accurate numbers when we're in a crisis like this. Normally it's within the 60th percentile of accuracy, but it's nowhere near accurate anymore. We are in one of the worst health crises of all time. We are in one of the worst pandemics in world history and United States history. I think it's up to 14th worldwide as far as mortality rate and number of deaths have gone, and that continues to grow and will continue to grow probably for the entirety of next year, because it'll take well into late summer for vaccines to become widely accessible in the United States, and we are the country that's buying up the most samples of the vaccine. So for the vaccine to make its way to less developed or less economically prevalent nations, even in the West, it's going to take probably the duration of 2021 for it to make its way into what is often characterized as the world south or third world. Will take significantly longer. Like COVID-19 is not disappearing within a year. So this bad boy might top 10 worst pandemics in human history. That's a conservative estimate. The fact that the Great Depression raged on for the better part of a decade before it was meaningfully curtailed by the largest spending programs in American history, largest government employment programs in American history. And if we're looking at the political apparatus and political representatives that we have right now, and their utter willingness to do even the bare minimum to provide for the American people or provide us any sort of stimulus, funding, shelter, protection whatsoever, but at the same time, when they give us $600, they try to make it so that workers can't sue their employers for lacking protections during a pandemic, this or any other pandemic, as well as tightening restrictions on the way we use the internet, or so many other fucked up things are wrapped up in this bill, which ostensibly is just a spending bill we can look at. Realistically, it's not possible or in any way likely that a spending bill anywhere near the level that's necessary to curtail or reverse the economic trend and decline of the United States, it will not be passed at least for 2 years. I say for 2 years because that's when we will have a shot at getting different representatives. But honestly, the political apparatus of the United States being what it is, even during the Great Depression, we had oligarchs in office for the longest time. It took the better part of a decade of organizing, of direct action, of violent resistance to the state and capitalists across the board. It took all-time high memberships in the Communist Socialist Parties of America, locally and federally. It took representing and electing communists and socialists to city offices, to state offices, to mayoral offices, even threatening Congress and the Senate. It took across the board organizing and resistance for them to throw even the pittance of the New Deal. And the New Deal was a pittance. It was a compromise on a compromise. The original planned proposal was written up by the Socialist Party of America at that time, I think. The SDSA, I think it was. Socialist Democratic Party of America. The names have changed so much in the last century. FDR basically took a couple people from the Social Democrats, took their policies, rewrote it to be more appealing to centrists, and then that's what FDR campaigned on. Him being the most progressive president that we've ever had, he was still compromising with socialist values at the time, and the reason was that socialism had reached this growth point, this massive population, that some sort of action needed to be taken immediately to curtail its growth and dissuade people from joining this un-American political party. Point being, the political, economic, and social conditions are not present today to see a New Deal. If you think Joe Biden or Kamala Harris will put anything reminiscent of a New Deal into action, I have a fucking bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. They're not going to do a goddamn thing. They're going to leave us out to dry. They're going to leave us to hang. And thousands and tens of thousands more people are going to die. At first from the pandemic, and then from poverty. God, I'm not fun when I get like this. I am so not fun when I get like this. But this is the reality. Things are not going to get better in January or February once Biden's in office. Things are going to stay more or less the same. Yeah, once they're elected, we can push them to the left. Fuck off. Right? It's such a ridiculous notion that after a lifetime of being a die-hard conservative and centrist, that people could in any way change the demented, frail, aging, broken mind of Joe Biden to be anything but stubborn and malignant. And that notion is entirely beyond me. It's fanciful and naive in the extreme. So hey, minimally, if you're listening, what can you do? You can talk to your friends about this. Even if it's just cathartic, even if you're talking in circles and you're all agreeing with each other, at least talk about this. Keep political awareness high. You can join the DSA or other related socialist organizations like Socialist Alternative, like the Black Socialists of America. They're all good organizations heading in the right direction. Even if you're an anarchist, even if you're a communist, even if you believe that revolution, violent revolution, is the only way that things will be resolved, I hear that and I respect that, and I absolutely recognize the validity of your arguments. But what's more important right now is organizing across a broad spectrum, mobilizing and educating across a broad spectrum, not getting tied up in inter-progressive minutia that ultimately doesn't matter. It really isn't important. The hard work, the immediate work, is organizing. And a lot of people, even here in Seattle, a lot of active people, even here in Seattle, are missing the fucking point. When Cal Anderson was taken by the Seattle Police Department, I saw a lot of anarchists, and only anarchists, getting mad at people for not turning out. One, it was an Alamo and it was never going to work. Two, it was a bad strategic look. Three, it's a bad PR look. And I know people's lives are more important than PR, but also you didn't provide a workable security for these people. You didn't organize. You just guilted people and got on your high horse and expected people to turn out, despite you doing things that were divisive and scared people away. You have no one to blame but yourself for not having mass critical support. If you are failing to reach out to people, you don't react to that by lashing out at those other people for not meeting you where you are. That's juvenile. You need to understand why people didn't reach out and change your approach to reach out to them, to mobilize, because you're never gonna have your fucking revolution unless you goddamn work for it. So the DSA, are they perfect? God, no. The conviction of so many social democrats in the DSA that we can reform our way into something better. It's naive. It's naive in the extreme. But I would rather work with people who at least recognize that there's a problem than refuse to work with them at all because they haven't become as embittered and tired as I have. Yeah, people who yell at other people for not protesting because they can't, for health reasons, because it puts their job or livelihood at risk, I hear the frustration there. I share it, but we need to appreciate that movements do not consist of uniform action. Movements, successful revolutions consist of a tide of action, a direction of action, a motion and momentum of action in different ways. Some people raising money, some people donating, some people making banners and signs, some people marching in the streets, some people taking extra legal means to strike back at the system, by which I may be describing violence, but I cannot in any way say that I support or encourage violence given this platform that I am on or the platform that I'm posting this to. My point more broadly is that we should look at historical examples, the broad motion and growth of support for guerrilla, revolutionary, and militant movements, and maybe appreciate that just because somebody isn't willing to pick up a placard or a gun and stand shoulder to shoulder with us does not mean that they are not a comrade. We all contribute in the ways that we can, and helping people find ways that they can contribute rather than lashing out at them for not contributing in the specific way that we are contributing is probably the better fucking move. Yeah. But there's a lot of very young, very passionate people who are so wrapped up in trauma, in emotion, in reaction. They are living in their amygdala day by day because this is a fight for their lives, for the lives of the people they love and they care about, and it feels, because it is, imminent. I don't want to discredit that. I don't want to speak down to that. I don't want to say your experience isn't real. I just really want to encourage people who are feeling so afraid, feeling so alone, feeling so betrayed, to consider the ways in which there are opportunities to organize and to grow, to make something real and lasting out of this movement, and not just one short burst of glorious fire. Because the truth of the matter is, our generations have been born into a society that has been robbed of its institutions that would support, foment, and enable revolution or reform through peaceful means. These socialists, anarchists, communists, revolutionary, leftist, and progressive spaces movements and organizations in the United States since the 1940s have been systematically, very intentionally gutted, defunding, criminalized, and driven to extinction. And now, on the outset of a new century, under conditions that are far worse than anything suffered in the century prior, we are seeing the necessity of reinventing, rediscovering, regrowing, and rebirthing these movements, these organizations, and these structures. It should not be in any way surprising that this work is hard, this work is difficult, this work feels long overdue and entirely inadequate to face the challenges that we are facing, because in truth, it is inadequate. But you have to walk before you can run. You have to crawl before you can walk. And by God, if we're even trying to move, we're doing so much more than the last two generations. If we're trying to organize, if we're trying to fight back, we're doing so much more for those who, if we are lucky, will come after us than those who came before us. I think I'm liking the sound of my own voice too much. It's been about an hour, so I should probably wrap up here. This has ended on maybe not a more optimistic, but a more actionable note than many of my last Let's Talks have. So let's count that as a modicum of success. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap up here. Finish this cider. Take a shower. Reach out to people. Well, thank you, Amy. Most people, when they call me smart, I don't really believe it. When you say it, I buy it. You're one of, let's say like roughly a dozen people that I actually believe compliments from. Yeah, I'll reach out to some people. I think I might be streaming later. We're probably just playing some Warzone, talking dumb shit. If I get too political or revolutionary, I tend to just wear people down because they're just, they're working stiffs just trying to survive, and they don't deal as well with the staring into the abyss as I do. So this might be it for woke-ass Alex for today, but we'll see. We'll see. Until, well, I'd say tomorrow, but hopefully soon. This is going to be it. I'm going to say toodaloo. Take care. I will see you then. DSAUSA.org. Come on, man. Just sign up. It's the bare fucking minimum. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.